1,200 Films Podcast, all horror all the time. Chuck Loaf here. With a belly full of tacos, I'm ready to discuss some horror films. But before we get on to that, science has released a study of what is scientifically the best horror films of all time. Have you seen this? Have you heard about this? So they hooked up with these hundreds of people to machines and monitored their whatever and their heart rate and pulse, I'm guessing, and said, okay, this is the scariest film based on that of all time. Let's look at their findings. They released like a top 40 list of how many films they covered. I don't know, but number 1, Sinister. Can't disagree there. Awesome. Amazing film. Damn near perfect. Insidious, another one on my top 5 all time. The Conjuring, awesome film. Hereditary, number 4, great. And then Paranormal Activity. What? And then It Follows. People have already forgotten about It Follows. They say, you say It Follows and they say, that clown movie? No. It Follows. Came up before the clown movies. About the sinister presence that jumps from person to person. It's been done and it sounds familiar and it's basic, but it was so well made. That's probably why it's number 6. Number 7, Conjuring 2, probably best sequel ever. Number 8, The Babadook. I was not impressed with The Babadook. That's another horror film for people that don't watch horror films. I thought everything was predictable, and the jump scares I saw coming a mile away. Number 9 was The Descent, which is fine. Number 10 was The Visit. That M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong movie, really, with the grandma? The Ring and Halloween, which I love and adore, just missed out on the top 10. And then the rest is what you expect. Exorcist, Poltergeist, yada yada. Number 30, kind of surprised me in a good way, Dark Skies. Nobody talks about Dark Skies either as far as a great horror film. And it was just added to Netflix for instant viewing. So if you got Netflix and haven't seen Dark Skies, now's your chance. It's excellent, excellent film. So yeah, that was science's results of the best films, horror films of all time. Interesting. But let's get going on my show. And here we go. The first film, these are all 2020 films, so I wouldn't even bother telling you the year. But I gotta tell you the rating scale. Of course, on the bottom, dumpster fire garbage. Can't quite recommend, okay if desperate, and then put on the watch list, and then up top, put on top of the watch list. Let's get going. The first film, Porno. Critic rating, 81%, audience score of 37. These teenagers are left in charge of this little theater that only shows 2 movies. And it was set in the 90s. And they stumble upon this closed-off room and find all these weird things in there. And they find this reel. And they start to play it. And it's an old porno. And not just an old porno. It is a porno that is possessed by a apparent naked womanly demon who has now been released into the theater. And she causes havoc and misery. And the teenage kids have to figure out, what do we do about this? Nice film. Boy, what a low budget, though. You could tell quickly. But they did well with what they had. Okay if desperate. Next one, The Owners. Critic rating, 65%. Audience score, 30. The Owners is basically the British version of Don't Breathe. I'm trying to think of any differences in these movies, and I really can't off the top of my head. This is the same films. But The Owners is not as good. Probably in 1 month, I will probably forget that there ever was a film called The Owners. But it's watchable. Okay, if desperate. Next one. Oh God. Oh Jesus. Smiley face killers. Critic rating 33%. Audience score of 84. This movie I didn't even know it was made, and I found out it was made, and I looked to see if it was available, and I found it, and I had to watch it immediately. I am big into the smiley face killers theory and scenarios, and there was actually a TV show, a true crime TV show about the smiley face killers. I forgot which channel it was on, one of those crime channels, the ID network or something, and it was all about the smiley face killers, and which is kind of a component of the Missing 411 series, which you'll have to Google if you don't know anything about it. But I knew a lot. I could do a whole probably 2 hour show just on the smiley face killers. That's how deep into it I am. So I was excited when I saw that he did a fictional movie based on this, and what I got was not that. This was simply put, gay erotica. I could tell watching the first half hour, well, either the director or the screenwriter or one of the major producers in this film has decided to make this a gay erotica film, and I did some research, and it's the screenwriter. If you had guessed screenwriter, you win. He was the same screenwriter that did American Psycho with Christian Bale. Now, yes, Christian Bale had a lot of nude scenes in that film, but it made sense. It had to do with his character. He was a narcissist and had to cover himself with creams and whatever and work out hours and hours and hours every day. This film had a lot of male nudity just for no reason. And someone should have told the screenwriter and stepped up and said, hey, the gayness level is at like a 12. Let's bring it down to like an 8 or a 7, because it's kind of distracting from the rest of the film, which is on a very serious subject. So we get to follow this college kid. We get to follow him everywhere he goes and watch him showering and dressing. And meanwhile, he's being stalked by this white van. And I'm serious when I say this. The white van is the most dynamic character in this film. The white van possesses a handful of dark, twisted demon whatever worshippers. And if you knew anything about the smiley face killers, the actual smiley face killers, they are flawless when apprehending people. They don't have any escapes. They don't get caught, and this was really sloppy. Everything they did was wrong. This kid must have escaped numerous times when they tried to apprehend him. And of course it didn't get good until an hour in, because we had to see this kid, again, showering, dressing, swimming, having fights with his girlfriend about pills and medication. If they had just dialed it down a little. There's a great movie called Jamie Marks is Dead. Great horror film. The director was gay, and it was based on a gay novel, and he said, it's too gay. We gotta turn this down a notch, or else nobody will watch it and it'll be silly. And he did, and it was a great film. He was right. Someone needed to turn the dial down on this one. It just it didn't. The ending was okay, but Jesus. Did I pick the wrong film? Did I I thought I was watching something else. Anyway, my opinion, can't quite recommend this. If what I said sounds interesting, go for it. I would look into the real smiley face killers and avoid this film altogether. Next film, Anything for Jackson. Critic rating 98%, audience score 76. This movie was awesome. This old couple, this elderly couple, they lost their grandson. So they decided to kidnap this pregnant woman and summon some demon so that their son will be reborn instead of what would have originally come out of that woman. So they got this satanic Bible and they don't know what the hell they're doing. It's kind of a horror comedy and it works out very well. It's yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. It's interesting. I would definitely say put it on the watch list. Anything for Jackson. Currently airing on Shudder. Then we got His House. Critic rating 100%. Audience score is 76. What ruined this for me is that scientific study I mentioned earlier. Well, I went back and watched Sinister. And then I watched this movie, His House. And you know what? His House works very hard to rip off Sinister in many, many ways. And it was like, oh, geez. Oh, like, oh, God. They ripped it. Oh, they did that too. It's like they kept ripping it off. Like, you don't rip off perfect movies and think that you have a good movie too. You can learn from them and make tweaks and do a little bit of what they did, but this was almost like a direct ripoff. This family from Sudan is like a war-torn country, and they're escaping to some English country, and they get into this junky house that they're forced to live in, and it's haunted. And then pretty much hit play on the Sinister film while this is going on, and you'll see it's the same film. So because of that, everyone's high on this film, so I can't give it any higher than okay if desperate. Sorry. Next one, Lost Girls. Critic rating 72%, audience score 52. This is based on true story about this woman whose daughter, who's a whore, a hooker, prostitute. And she goes missing and she throws a fit because the cops aren't doing much because, she's a whore, prostitute, hooker, lady of the night. So, it's kind of like Three Billboards movie, but not quite as good. And it's more dark, dark drama because the more she figures out about her daughter and what probably happened, it looks bleak. But it was an okay little film, okay desperate. Next one, Ghosts of War. Critic rating 38%, audience score 41. Currently airing on Netflix. Stars Brandon Twats, however you say his name. He's the kid from the Giver movie that was supposed to have a big series of films from it, but it didn't because the Giver sucked. So now he's in this one. First 2/3 excellent, and then it loses steam a little, but I'm not going to hold that too much against it because it was still an okay ride. Okay if desperate. This group of army guys are forced, it's during World War II, and they're supposed to babysit this Nazi mansion house and keep it under their control so the Nazis don't get it back. And when they're just hanging around, that's when things go bump in the night. But okay if desperate. Nice little film, just not complete. Next one, Becoming. No critic rating, audience score of 27. I thought this was an excellent film. This couple are on a road trip to go visit the girl's family, and somewhere along the line he gets kind of possessed by something bad and is slowly changing And she realizes this and says, ooh, what do I do about this? There's a problem. So it's a slow burn, and it takes a minute to get there, but I thought it was worth the ride. Put it on the watch list. I don't care. I thought it was fine. Next one, Nobody Sleeps in the Woods Tonight. It's a Netflix movie. It's actually from Poland. The actual title, I won't even try to. Critic rating 67%, audience score 37. This group of kids out camping, and there's some freaks out there. It reminded me a lot of Just Before Dawn, which came out in the early 80s. Very, very, very similar. But this was a nice adaptation, I guess, of that. Whether it was a direct adaptation, I don't know, but it should be, because it's the same movie. But it was fun. It was nice. It was well made. Okay, I'm desperate. I mean, and it's the English dubbed voices, which you don't even notice after a while. You get used to it. Next one, The Deeper You Dig. Critic rating 94%. Audience score is 62. This was good. This was about this killer. Apparently a serial killer with a conscience. He kills these people. And then he feels really bad. Well, he killed this girl. And her mom happens to be a psychic. And she realizes what happened. And so she decides to befriend said serial killer. And kind of weasel her way into his life. And make him feel guilty so that he admits to this. And it was a fascinating approach to this. I've never seen anything quite like this. So I would say put it on the watch list. Nice film. The Deeper You Dig. The next one. Wow. Rent a Pal. Audience, critic, whatever. What are we at? Critic rating 67%. Audience score is 72. I'm trying to race through these. This is on Hulu. I saw the starred Will Wheaton. I said, sign me up. I haven't seen Will Wheaton since his days on Star Trek. This is set in the 80s, the mid 80s, when VCRs were a new thing. And now they're not even a thing. But this lonely 40-year-old guy who's taking care of his elderly mother, he goes to the video store and rents these videos. And he found this tape in the discount bin called Rent a Pal, where it's basically a video where the guy in the video is pretending to be your friend. And he talks to you like you're his friend, and you go back and forth and you play games and stuff. And then it gets bizarre, and then it takes a turn. Fascinating film. Will Wheaton, wow, I didn't know he still did films, but apparently he does, and this is a very good one. It needs to be seen. Put it on the watch list. Rent a Pal. Next one, Don't Click. No critic rating, audience score 40%. Skip this one. These two roommates, and one goes on to this dirty dark web underground porno site where you pay to torture the person, and he clicks on it. And then this demon takes over their lives and puts them in scenarios. Sounds interesting. It is not. Dumpster fire garbage. Next one, Possessor Uncut. Critic rating 93%. Audience score 59. I'm almost done. We're almost through this. A lot of people were comparing this to Hereditary, saying this is this year's Hereditary. Not so much. It is a good film. A good science fiction horror film. Lost a little steam at the end. But basically this woman, she's an assassin. And she kind of takes over your brain, Possessor, and gets you to do an assassination, and then jumps out as she's killing you, as she shoots herself in the mouth, and so you don't even get to live if she takes over you. You're pretty much done. And then of course this goes fine until a scenario doesn't go fine, and that's where we go on this one. There were some parts I did not understand at all. I don't know if I'm just out of touch or if this film is just weird, but okay if desperate. Now finally, time for our feature review, Love and Monsters.
The day of the monster uprising was the day I lost everyone. Only a small fraction of humanity survived and moved underground. I've been scanning for Amy the entire time. And now I finally found her.
Joel!
Hey!
Joel!
Amy, is that you?
Oh my God!
Hey! How far away is Amy's colony?
85 miles. It's an impossible journey. Everyone will try to kill you. Don't fight. Just run and hide. Okay?
Love and Monsters. Critic rating 91%. Audience score of 89. Dylan O'Brien stars in this. The kid from The Maze Runner. It's set in the not too distant future where this nuclear thing had gone off, and now all these giant bugs have taken over, kind of like a Starship Troopers type deal. They've taken over Earth. So all the human beings that live in these little underground bunkers with a half dozen to a dozen people per bunker, and now they're just trying to survive this out. And the Dylan O'Brien character got separated from his girlfriend when this all started, when he was 17. And he's been at the same bunker for years and years and years and years. Now it's several years later, and he's and everyone else in the bunker has hooked up with someone except for him. So out of boredom and loneliness, he decides he's going to go find her. He knows what bunker she's at, but it's 80 miles away. And you got giant millipedes and cockroaches and all these other giant crazy bugs out there trying to kill you. So he's going to go on his own and go find this chick that he hasn't seen in several years. Just because. His character reminded me of the Jake Gyllenhaal from Bubble Boy. That character, he's kind of like this innocently naive. He's just out there living it. Just going to go for it. And he gets distracted by love and decides he's going to go on this little journey. That's what it kind of reminded me of. Take Starship Troopers, mix in Bubble Boy, and you get Love and Monsters. And it worked out quite nicely. Everything about this movie was fun. There was no slow points. The monsters were a little silly sometimes, I thought, but nothing was bad. And then so yes, check this out. This needs to be viewed. This is an amazing film. Love and Monsters. Put it on top of the watch list. How high will this go in my top 10 for the year? Well, we'll find out soon enough. I have already made a rough draft of my top 10 and honorable mentions and my worst 5. I think my worst 5 are pretty well settled in. But the rest of the list of top 10, it keeps changing throughout. It changed a little bit as I was watching the films I covered today. So as we will see soon enough. So I can't really tell you what's coming on the next show because I'm not going to be doing any new reviews. It's just going to be a recap. So that's it for this. Join me next time for the best and worst of 2020.